Phil McCracken. Phil McCracken. Buster Bars, Buster Bars, Star Trek 5.
I hate everyone!
Release McCracken!
All right, Phil, do your intro.
So your intro.
I hate you all!
Wow.
Especially that guy with the chin, the representative of Lenin, the last Soviet from California stand. You know him. We all know him. Cash, I don't have any money, but I want to eliminate the pennies. Yeah.
No cash on delivery.
No.
Yes.
No.
All right. So, go ahead, Phil. Take it away.
I'm speechless now because Crit put a hard picture up there that is making me. It's hard. It's hard. But yeah, we're going to talk right about a guitar player, a famous guitar player named Jeff Beck, who sadly passed away today.
Yes.
So, I want everybody, if you know anything about Jeff Beck, just give you quick thoughts on it, what you know, what you might not know, and we'll go around the horn.
Let me grab something real quick. But you guys go ahead. So, this Jeff Beck, a lot of people, the best way I could describe Jeff Beck is that all of the guitar greats say that he is the best guitarist in the world. And he had an amazing career playing alongside. He started out playing alongside Jimmy Page in the Yardbirds before he left to do his own thing. And he
replaced Eric Clapton.
Yeah,
in the Yardbirds.
He replaced Eric Clapton.
Yep. And you have to remember, his incarnation of the Yardbirds evolved into Jimmy Page becoming Led Zeppelin.
Yes. Crit, I believe you have some echo.
Huh?
I think you're echoing a little bit.
Uh-oh.
But anyways, though, I went and grabbed specifically this guitar because obviously Jeff Beck played, he played a Les Paul, he played a Telecaster. But this right here, the Fender Stratocaster, is what he was most known for playing. And the sounds that he could get from specifically this style of guitar was unbelievable, especially given the fact that he did not believe in using guitar picks. So one of the things he would do, and I can't play like Jeff Beck, but he would basically just use his thumb and fingers to get most of his sounds. And he was a real pusher and proponent of using the whammy bar to like pitch bend up and down the notes that he would play. And I'm going to put into the chat 2 songs that I think people really should listen to. One is his cover of I can't remember who recorded it originally, but it's a song called Sleepwalk. Everything that he does is instrumental. So one song called Sleepwalk, and then another one that was actually written for him by Jimmy Page called Beck's Bolero. So I'm going to go ahead and pull both of those links. And while I do that, anyone else that knows anything about Jeff Beck is certainly welcome to say anything.
Well, what I know is that he is a 2-time Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
One with the Yardbirds and one by him. Not sure if it's with his self-named band or by himself, but either or, it's the same outcome. He's a 2-time Hall of Famer. won a couple of Grammys. He was known. His big thing, believe it or not, was when he teamed up with what is the one guy who sung Maggie May? I can't think of his name. Rod Stewart. There you go, Rod Stewart. He played with Rod Stewart for I think an album. He did an album with him. So he was really known for that. Like I said, he knew everybody in the English guitar circles.
Mm-hmm.
All, like you said, all of them said that he was, if not the best, one of the best. And that's a lot considering at his time, if you don't put you can't put Jimi Hendrix because he was an American guitarist.
Yeah.
You put him there in the category of Jimmy Page, Richie Blackmore,
Tony Iommi, Clapton.
Yep. There's a whole list, and they always refer to him as their favorite lead guitarist. So that says a lot. But on the other hand, where these other people had their big bands and made their big thing, not Jimmy Page, but Jeff Beck didn't make it to where the rest of them hit that high in popularity. He didn't get up there with the Jimmy Pages, the Richie Blackmores, as being record sales or popularity, like saying, this is my all-time favorite. He's always listed as one of the greats, not and when I say that in public, when you're talking to people that actually play guitar, famous guitar players, they list him as their favorite. But if you talk to everyday people, you might get 1 out of 10 to say that Jeff Beck was our favorite guitarist.
Which is a shame.
Yes. So, but it's sad. He's 78 years old. Some people might say too young. Some people might say he was too old. 78 is now, I guess, what you can say the new 50s, because it seems like everybody's living a long age now. But I think it's safe to say age is starting to creep up in the rock world. So there, I will say in the next couple of years, I won't be surprised if we lose a lot more.
Yeah,
just through natural death,
And think for as many of those classic, the old guard of rock that we've lost, all the ones that we do still have. For example, most of the Rolling Stones, all 4 original members of Black Sabbath, Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, whatever you may think of them nowadays, they're still here, and we should be thankful for that. Even if they're not actively putting out music, the fact that we have not turned on the news yet to see, for example, and God forbid, Ozzy has passed away, or Keith Richards has passed away. The fact that we have not seen that yet, we should be thankful for.
You have to remember he survived also the time where I call it almost everyone in the music industry from the late 60s to the 80s, maybe even the early 90s, you can say. The white powder was very popular. And there's repercussions for that. And I'm not speculating or implying anything, but he came out of the same group. Like how Glenn Hughes is still alive from surviving all that. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. Ozzy, it's a miracle. Only thing I would say is, like I said, he come out of that group. I mean, Eric Clapton wrote the song Cocaine. That says it all right there. So, yeah. Even though he in 78 might be considered young for a lot of people, he survived all that and made it to 78, where some of them people during that time, some of them didn't even make it out of the 70s.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Ramones. There's only one longtime member that's survived, and that's Marky Ramone. Johnny Ramone, Joey Ramone, Dee Dee Ramone, Tommy Ramone. they've all passed on now.
And I mean, think of all the people that have passed away just in the last couple years, and a lot of them didn't have the drug issues, but just naturally they said that it was their time. So I would tell you, if there's anybody from the 70s, 80s that you listen to, maybe even late 60s, enjoy it now, because tomorrow they could be gone. We don't know who's next.
Yeah.
Like I said, the Who, they're up there in age. They're still doing it, two of them. But how much longer can they do it? Most of these people are late 70s, early 80s in age. You know, can't go on forever. Shows got to end. So, but it's sad that it went. At least he went out. He was still touring, still making music.
Mhm.
He was doing stuff with Johnny Depp.
Yeah,
Which time? So, yeah, it was like it wasn't like he was sitting down not doing anything.
Yeah,
So,
I think him and Johnny Depp did a full studio album together, with Johnny doing the lead vocals and Jeff doing lead guitar.
you know, it's funny because a lot of people don't know that Johnny Depp was into music band wise up until the point when he met Nicolas Cage and suggested him to go to have an acting career. You never know. He could have made it as a musical artist. We might have had Johnny Depp in a different form that we have him today.
I could see that. I could genuinely see that. But unfortunately, Johnny Depp lost clearly a good friend and a great musical partner, and the world lost a great guitarist. So I don't think there's anything further that we can say about that other than thank you, Jeff Beck, for your career. We will remember you well. Right,
God
Phil?
bless him.
So with that, Phil, I believe it's time to move on to the main event, right?
Here's where the fun begins.
Mm-hmm.
Good old
Now,
Vince McMahon.
I do gotta cut in real quick though. I know I said you're leading the conversation, but I do want to cut in and say this. You'll notice the stream's title tonight, guys, is called Nuts and Crazy. This is an idea that Phil and I came up with together, where obviously Phil is a crazy old man. So why not make content of the crazy old man talking about other crazy old men?
Vince McMahon has me beat.
And
I am not worthy. When
Are we talking about the Phantom Menace and the Senate, or I should say the shareholders, giving their emergency powers to Arcel? Or
oh yes,
and of course we can't forget, and I fear, and I'm sure all of you fear, this will kill WWE for sure if they even think about selling it to Saudi Arabia, because I do not want that at all. I rather a company like Comcast buy them.
I was going to say, other than Comcast, any other company that purchases WWE outright, gains control of all of WWE's content, everything associated with WWE, it's going to kill it.
Well, as far as the Saudi Arabian partnership or whatever they call a conglomerate, we don't know if they already have shares in the WWE. They could already be there. I am hesitant on any of these big corporations buying the WWE because Disney's pushing it when it becomes a so-called monopoly. Yeah,
they pretty much already are.
In my opinion, they should already have been broken up, or some of the acquisitions should have not gone through.
I don't think Disney is going to be purchasing stuff. Their stock is down, and Bob Iger needs to pretty much bring them back to how they were a couple years ago.
Yeah, they're lowering prices for certain days at theme parks or offering free parking at Disney World again. They're hurting for cash.
Mhm.
And I mean, think of it this way: a couple years ago, well, what is it, 20 some years ago? Some of these companies, NBC, CBS, Fox, they wanted to jump in buying wrestling. They could have bought WCW. It was practically going away for, now I wouldn't say peanuts, but it was going cheap. Nobody wanted to touch, I don't want to say all wrestling, but most of wrestling. They didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. Eric Bischoff tried to put Monday Night Nitro on NBC, and they were like, no. So, I mean, like I said, I don't know the ins and outs, but I could tell you this: however they structured their corporation, when they went from Vince McMahon owner to Vince McMahon, I'm issuing stock. I'm pretty sure it's something similar to what Disney has, where him, maybe his daughter and son, and maybe even his wife have what they call stage one stock. And stage one stock is stock that's valued at a price, but when they sell it, no one can use that stock. It's gone forever. But it holds double the value of the normal stock that you see going up on the stock market. Okay. A lot of businesses are run that way. So Vince McMahon coming out and doing this, I don't really blame him. If they're going to sell, if maybe you have to separate from what the board wants and what the family wants. And in his position, if they're going to sell his company, he's going to make darn sure he's going to get the best deal possible, regardless of what any of us think here.
And one of the things I've read on the dirt sheets, whether it's true or not, I don't know. But one of the things I said that Vince is going to try to do before actually selling the WWE is negotiate new TV rights because SmackDown's TV rights are coming up as are Raw's. So he's going to try to negotiate a new deal so he gets even more money.
I could certainly see him trying to do that, but I don't know if he will be able to make that sort of a power play, because I had seen an article posted today that there was in fact, I'm going to bring it on screen now, that this is according to wrestlingnews.co, where there has been a WWE shareholder lawsuit filed.
Yes, that was filed today.
So let's break this down for a moment, and I'll read it since I have control of the screen. Vince McMahon is facing investigator litigation over claims that he pushed aside the WWE board of directors by illegally installing himself as chairman. McMahon previously resigned from the company last July as chairman and CEO in the face of allegations that he paid $12 million over several years to keep quiet sexual harassment accusations by several women. As previously reported, Vince McMahon told the board of directors in late December that he wouldn't approve any potential sale of the company or he wouldn't approve any potential sale of the company nor the media rights deals if he wasn't brought back to the board. In a response, the board unanimously voted they didn't want him to return. Following the news of Stephanie McMahon resigning from WWE on Tuesday as chairwoman and co-CEO, Vince was named executive chairman of the board, while Nick Khan is the CEO. According to court documents obtained by Bloomberg Law, Scott A. Fellows, a WWE shareholder, filed a lawsuit against McMahon in Delaware's Chancery Court, accusing him of using his 81% voting control to oust 3 board members to bring himself, George Barrios, and Michelle Wilson back to the board by making bylaw changes that would, quote, impose his will on the board and WWE, unquote. The lawsuit noted McMahon timed his return to seize control of upcoming negotiations over the company's TV deals and forced his way back by leveraging a threat to withhold support for any deal reached without his participation. The lawsuit notes that, quote, to take complete personal control over any major corporate decision by, quote, adding his cronies to the board violates Delaware law. Fellows wants an invalidation of the bylaw changes made and his legal costs paid for by this lawsuit.
No, it doesn't. I'm sorry. That does not. First of all, it says there in the article, Vince McMahon has how much voting control?
81%.
Okay. Anybody with 81% of any company that's okay, look, here's how a franchise works. And there's many different versions. Like LucasArts, you see LLC. You'll see another company have LTD. When you go up to the Delaware Chancery Court, you have to write pretty much like a company constitution. This is how we're structured. This is what you would, this writes for the CEO, board, stock. Okay. So he has 81%. He can name with 81% who he wants to be CEO. I guess he chose himself. And he could choose anyone on the board at any office.
Nick Khan is
Hold on a second.
CEO.
Yeah. He's chairman of the board. CEO is a very different position.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that. But you have to understand this. He has dual, how can I put it? Yes, he could be the CEO or in charge of the company, but he's also the largest holder of the stock. So he has two roles. So if they went to a board meeting and they say, forget he has any title. He's at the board meeting, and let's say he owns 70%. The other 11% is Stephanie, Shane, his wife. They own 10, and then the other 19 or 9%, whatever, is split up among other people. When you hold the vote, he don't even need the other people to be involved. He doesn't, because he owns the majority of the stock.
Crit, everything okay?
Sorry. Someone sent me a video. I got the hiccup.
Well, if you're gonna laugh, at least share it with us so we can laugh too.
You know that annoying AMC ad you see if you go to the cinema? I'm sure Mike knows what I'm talking. The one with Nicole Kidman, right?
The Welcome Back to the Movies one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone sent me this. Oh, I have it up.
All right.
An indescribable feeling we get when the lights begin to dim. And we go somewhere we've never been before. Not just entertained, but somehow reborn. Together. Dazzling images on a huge silver screen. Sound that I can feel. Somehow, heartbreak feels good. Our heroes feel like the best punchers.
He's lost it, guys.
Because here,
I'm sure Cassius.
He has lost it. He has completely lost it.
I blame Cash Money. I blame Cash Money.
I blame whoever sent that clip.
Probably was
There's only one appropriate response to this.
All right, youngster, out you go.
Don't come back! Ever!
Oh, poor.
Are you all right now, Crit?
Yeah.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what? I can't even say anything. It's not my channel. Phil, do you have any official response as the host of this show?
As the owner and CEO of Release McCracken,
Mm-hmm.
I have no comment at this time because I'm utterly speechless of what I saw.
Yes.
Speechless.
Okay. So,
Okay, back to Vince McMahon.
yes,
Um,
I think now is a good time to sort of take stock of what all has led us up to this point. So, how far back, Phil, do we want to go as far as looking back at Vince's career? Because obviously we have the current news surrounding him, but this show is about Vince McMahon in general. So we don't have to limit it to just the current events.
I think we know all his WWF, the war, the Monday Night Wars.
Yeah.
Let's just stick with the last 15 years because we can honestly say, it's for sure for the WWE, the last 15 years has been a decline.
So we'll say just shortly after he buys WCW.
Give it a couple
2008.
years. Give it a couple years.
2008.
Let's get it. Let's
2000
get
okay.
it where. Let's give it about like 2007, somewhere around there. 2005, if
Okay.
you want to go back, right around there.
Yeah.
When I like to say, for me, when it start going downhill, it start losing its thunder. You know?
Okay. So that was unfortunately the same year that we lost Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit. Mike, feel free to fact check me on that.
Chris Benoit died in June of 2007.
Okay, yes. And Vince, obviously, the bulk of the Chris Benoit controversy falls on the shoulders of Chris Benoit himself, and this is not the stream to go into that.
Mm.
But Vince McMahon landed himself in some controversy in that too. Mike, would you care to elaborate on that, please?
Before the unfortunate events that involved Chris Benoit's family, his son and his wife, Vince had a storyline going on where, well, basically he was writing himself off TV permanently.
Mm-hmm.
And the last shot you see the week before on Monday Night Raw is Vince McMahon stepping into a limousine, and then it cuts to a wide shot after he closes the door to that limousine, of that limousine blowing up. Now, we all know Vince wasn't in there. This is all done, before Raw even aired. But he was basically writing himself off, and they were supposed to have basically a funeral edition of Monday Night Raw saying, Vince McMahon is dead as far as the Mr. McMahon character is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously, because of the events that happened in Atlanta, Georgia that June, Chris Benoit not showing up as he was scheduled to. He was supposed to win the ECW title.
From CM Punk, I believe, specifically.
Yes. Because he didn't show up and they found out what happened, there was no Monday Night Raw as far as having a live crowd was concerned. Monday Night Raw began with an empty ring, with Vince McMahon in the center of the ring, and everybody talking about their thoughts and feelings for Chris Benoit before they would eventually find out what actually happened.
Mm-hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, that following ECW, Vince again got into the ring, addressed the actual events, and said, as soon as I'm done, and pretty much said to the effect of, as soon as I'm done with this address, you will never hear us mention Chris Benoit again.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's,
and that's
indeed how
there
it's
has
been.
not been a mere mention of Chris Benoit, and even when they've edited video clips showing, past matches, they've tried to their best ability not 100%, mind you, but to their
Mhm.
best ability to edit out any parts where you actually see Chris Benoit. Because
Yeah.
as far as they're concerned, he never existed.
Hmm.
And rightfully so, to be honest.
Right.
Chris
But-
Benoit is not the only one they did that in recent years. They also did it to Jimmy Superfly Snuka. They make sure that he's not mentioned, not talked about. He's what they call it, non grata, I guess you can
Persona
call it.
non grata, yes.
Yeah. And mind you, he's still alive. So, but yeah, I won't go into detail.
Jimmy Snuka?
passed
No.
away.
Yeah,
He passed away.
Oh, excuse, I forgot. Yeah, he did. But they don't mention him because of the incident that happened, and it came to light before he died. I don't know if it's true or not, but WWE, you don't hear nothing mentioned about Jimmy Superfly Snuka. You won't see videos or anything. You know how sometimes they'll go and they'll share something from the past? Nothing on Snuka. And
Okay.
Snuka at the time, around 84 with Hogan, Andre the Giant, all them people, he was just as big as them guys. Not
he
as
was.
big as Hulk Hogan, but he was big.
He was the guy, if I'm not mistaken, that revolutionized the idea of jumping from the top of a steel cage to hit some form of move on someone, right?
He was Macho Man before the Macho Man.
Right.
Yep.
So, but yeah, there's other people that are ousted from the WWE. Ole Anderson will never be talked to, mentioned. You figured as a horseman, he would have been there for them to go to the Hall of Fame. He wasn't. They went with Barry Windham, which, in my opinion, as a horseman fan, was a good choice. But Vince McMahon had his issues with Ole, and rightfully so.
Mhm.
Well, you also remember the fact that for years, Bruno Sammartino, you wouldn't hear him mentioned. You wouldn't even be seen at a WWE event because of the bad blood he had and Vince had. It was Triple H who actually managed to finally talk Bruno Sammartino into coming back to WWE to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame 10 years ago at WrestleMania. I know this because I was there.
Yeah. Real quick, though, focusing this kind of back to Vince, because yes, all of that is important, that it was Vince's decision, I'm sure it was ultimately Vince's decision to erase those people from history, whether for actual serious or otherwise petty reasons. But I do think, like Nova, it is important to go to back to the beginning. Yes, we, like you said, Phil, we know about the Monday Night Wars and his part in all of that. But in order to properly explain why Vince McMahon would do what he's doing now with WWE, we got to go back to when he first acquired it. He made a promise with his dad when his dad handed over the WWE to him. His dad did not want him to expand into other territories. He wanted him to keep the, at the time, WWF just a regional thing around New York. And Vince broke that promise, and he and Ted Turner sort of together bought up all
The
of
Crockett's, not Ted Turner at the time. The Crockett's.
Jim
Crockett's
Crockett.
The Crockett's were the ones who were earning at the time, because you had AWF, UWF, AW something. Around 85, especially around 85, both companies start buying. They weren't just buying companies, they were buying people.
Right.
A couple years before, Vince McMahon got Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant. Where his father was making talent, he was gathering talent. This guy's already pre-existing. We're going to bring him. Then the Crockett's had to do the same thing. They brought in Sting, where Vince McMahon grabbed his partner, the Ultimate Warrior, And then you have in the 80s, around 86, the infamous Vince McMahon actually bought NWA / World Championship Wrestling.
Yeah.
He had it for a weekend. And he actually flew down with his wife to the studios of in Atlanta, Georgia. And going through the halls, he's going in there and runs into Ole Anderson, who is what you call a booker, the man who plans the matches, helps set up who's wrestling that night. Runs into him and he goes, Ole, I want you to meet my wife. And that's where Ole start dropping F-bombs. I won't say that was kind of the reason that he ended up saying, I'll sell it to Ted Turner. I don't want this.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of like feeling, the only way I can compare is what some people are feeling right now with the thought of the Saudi Arabians buying WWE. People in the NWA or the W World Championship Wrestling didn't want Vince McMahon.
But nothing's been confirmed about the Saudis.
No,
acquiring
nothing's been
WWE yet.
confirmed. No. But at the time when Vince bought it, don't forget, by the end of that Sunday, he was already sold. He sold NWA to Ted Turner.
And that's when it became WCW.
Yes.
So we bring all of that up to say that Vince McMahon is a very, like, an extremely, like, you could say to a toxic level, extremely ambitious person.
He's a shrewd businessman.
Yes. And he is, by those actions, you could judge him as the type of person that wants to be at the top of whatever it is that he's getting into, and to hell with everybody else.
It would be like if, and I know this is probably going to be a bad example, but I'm going to try to explain it the best way I can. It would be like if, he had his own YouTube channel
Mm-hmm.
and he wanted to take out his competition. He would look and see who his competition was and do whatever he could to take them out.
Careful, Mike. You might be giving Phil ammo for teasing Matt Rissman.
Well, you have to remember his prime competition to him and the WWF at the time. Yes, NWA was big, but he first went in the northern regions. He started going to where I forget the name of the organization, but they were based in the Midwest.
The UWF?
AWA?
Yeah,
Oh,
the AWA. And then he went straight across over to the Western states. And I forget the name of that organization. So and I'm talking about in a period of 3 years, he literally bought out 2 other regions, which caused the NWA to do the same thing.
I believe even Vince, help me out here, Pacific. Did he also acquire Stu Hart's Wrestling Stampede?
I think he acquired some assets. I'm not 100% sure, though.
I know that the Canadian Stampede was pretty much a WWE put on show of Stu Hart's Wrestling Stampede.
Yeah.
But
I know for sure he did buy out Nashville, the one that
you mean
Jerry
Memphis?
Lawler.
Yeah, Jerry King Lawler. Part of the deal was bringing him in was he gets to go into the announcing. Semi-retired, he can wrestle here and there, but he was basically brought in to be the announcer.
And here's another thing. Let's not forget Monday, March 26th, 2001. The day he bought WCW. He could have just been backstage the whole time and run specifically Raw. No, he didn't. He had a segment on WCW Nitro, the last Nitro that would ever air on TNT, the last Nitro ever. And then he came out for a segment on WWE Raw before that episode of Nitro ended, and you had a simulcast of Raw on both TNT and, of course,
USA.
Spike TV.
Quick
yeah,
question,
It
Mike.
was Spike TV at the time.
Quick question, Mike. Is it the WCW episode or the Raw episode where we get that iconic promo of him where it's like, I bought my competition and now I have them in my hand? That iconic image.
Yes, I have them in the palm of my hand. You could tell, even in that quote unquote promo, the gleam in his eye. It's like, I crushed my competition, and now they belong to me. And some of the things he said, it turned out to be true. Turned out to be true that buying his competition, WCW wasn't going to get a chance, even though the dirt sheets at the time were saying WWE is going to, spin off WCW into another brand, possibly replacing SmackDown, and they were passing it around different networks to try to air it. But Vince McMahon, because of his ego, wanted to make sure that the last time anyone saw WCW, that he basically stomped them down and pushed them to the curb as if they didn't matter anymore. Because as far as Vince was concerned, they no longer mattered.
Yes.
They were dead.
And Phil, you want to read what Nova just said?
Yeah, Sting versus Ric Flair was the last wrestling match of WCW. Big thing on that was Sting was still up in the air at the time on where he was going and what he was going to do. But it was like a couple weeks later when Booker T went on to Raw, and The Rock pretty much made fun of him, like, who are you and what's that belt you're wearing?
I'm the WCW champion.
Yeah.
Sucker. And then The Rock says, you're the WCW champion, sucker. Basically mocking WCW. That's what
that
basically said to Sting
going
to say,
to
no, I'm not going to WWE.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where some of the people
right in those instincts in 2015.
Then there was some of the people that got together. Jeff Jarrett and his dad said he was going to start up which came out to be TNA.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
NWA, TNA is how it started out.
I think the WCW invasion angle was horrible.
Yes, it was.
Too.
They should have waited because you didn't have people like Ric Flair until after the angle was done. You didn't have Hogan. You didn't have Nash. You didn't have Hall. You needed those guys. You needed to bring back Macho Man. You needed to bring in Buff Bagwell and
there was a reason.
Here's the thing: they did
and Disco Inferno.
There was
at a better time because
they had to
remember how bad that edition of Raw was.
They still were getting paid by Ted Turner, and they could not compete. So, not all WCW had the no compete clause.
So some of the
big ones,
WCW contracts were absorbed by WWE, the ones that they could absorb that weren't under the contracts like Hogan and Flair and everybody.
If I'm not mistaken, they didn't have specifically WCW contracts. They had AOL Time Warner contracts.
They weren't wrestling contracts.
Exactly.
They were kind of what you would call, I don't know what you would want to call it, out of the organization kind of contracts. But then that's what broke WCW. I mean, let's be honest. The Bret Hart Angle whole thing, he had signed a contract. He was good with WWE. And then a couple months later, Vince McMahon's like, you know what? You can make a whole lot more money, and I'm going to let you go. You go make that money from Ted Turner. And you can say whatever you want about the screw job and everything. Bret Hart, even though he didn't get a lot of, let's say, didn't do his career any justice, he did get played quite well, even for what he did.
And I need to make a correction. I said that first WCW match on Raw was, Disco Inferno and Buff Bagwell. It was actually Booker T and Buff Bagwell.
And Buff Bagwell literally got booted to the curb after that match because Vince didn't like him.
There was a lot of people that when WCW did get bought out, Vince McMahon wasn't going to bring back. He was not a fan of what's his name? Hey Yo. They
Scott
let
Hall.
He wasn't a fan of Scott Hall. He wasn't a big fan of Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash. Yet he still brought him in
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
because he knew they could make the WWF. Remember, there was still the WWF at the time the NWO debuted at No Way Out. But he knew they could bring in money. They were still a draw.
Yes. The one, at least ex-WWE guy that Vince truly didn't want to bring back, at least not until years down the line, was Macho Man because of allegedly him sleeping with Stephanie.
Well, also, he had some bad blood with Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah. Which ended with him going to TNA.
Yeah.
But, you know, he managed to go through all that, and it was chaotic because, let's be honest, having two rosters combined on it, even with two shows, there was too many wrestlers. Too many
wrestlers, not enough TV time. Even if you count Velocity, which was the Saturday show, and then Sunday Night Heat, there still wasn't enough airtime for that size of a roster.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he should have. He did do it over time, and let's not forget he brought in the ECW. He loved Ron Van Dam. Let's give him credit. He did love some of them.
Acknowledge your chat.
Yeah, I do. My God, I'm not saying that. No. I can't say that. Can't. Oh, but anyway,
should I let him in here?
You can let he's like he's. Have you ever seen that old Larry Bird and Jordan commercial? And they're playing basketball on a McDonald's commercial, and Charles Barkley tries every. Can I play, guys? Can I play? We can let him play. Bring him on.
All right, Cash. I just sent you the link.
And you know, continuing with, you know, Vince, there were interviews. There's one specific interview on ESPN at the time during the height of the Attitude Era, where they were asking Vince, you know, what's different about WWF now as compared to when you had guys like Hogan and Macho Man. And Vince McMahon, I'm probably not going to say this exactly as he said it, but characters back then were more cartoonish. Now our characters are more a shade of gray. So Vince has always looked at the wrestling business as more of an entertainment business, and he has always considered his brand the far superior.
Mm-hmm. And that's also led to him pretty much banning the term wrestling and wrestlers from the world wrestling entertainment, instead choosing to call it sports entertainment. And Phil, you need to welcome your new guest.
Well, the sports entertainment came after Benoit, and well, no, it came at the Attitude Era, just to make it clear.
Oh man!
But it's cash money.
It's crit, and I didn't know you
cash money.
I'm not.
I brought you in.
Yes, I had to, took me some time to find that avatar.
Oh God! I'll be right back. I need 2 minutes, Paul.
Okay,
it's
that's
like
fine.
they're gonna go hunting for some Japanese whalers.
Oh boy!
So while Phil is away, another thing worth mentioning, as far as Vince McMahon and his ego getting in the way, is the fact that Vince has always had pretty much one template for the wrestler that he wanted to push. A guy that a guy that had amazing looks, that looked like he was pretty much built out of a brick wall,
Straight out of a comic book, the
Yeah.
bodybuilder look.
Yeah, the bodybuilder look. You know, he wanted the Hulk Hogan look, the pretty much
Superstar
that.
Billy Graham.
Yeah. And there was this one channel that I like to watch as far as wrestling commentary goes. It's called Parts Fun Known, and the host, Adam Blompied, sometimes what he'll do is he'll do rebookings of certain eras of WWE, and he was doing a look at Roman Reigns' first run in WWE after the Shield breakup, and he made a really good point, because remember, at the time, before Roman Reigns came back and became the Tribal Chief, actually no, before he came back from leukemia, no one liked him. And the thing is,
I remember that era.
it was because Vince wanted to make Roman Reigns the guy in the most inorganic way possible after he had just done that with John Cena. And pretty much what Adam said was, it's not that they hated Roman, it's that they hated Cena. And it's not that they hated Cena, they really hated Hogan. And if anything, it's what they really hated was Vince's insistence on there being, quote unquote, the guy, instead of just letting wrestling storytelling take its ebb and flow and letting the guy just organically make themselves.
I think,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I think the hate for Cena has dwindled. It's over with. I think he's
Right.
become naturally, a lot of people grew up with him now, so it's
Yeah,
the
for
thing
me-
with Roman Reigns was there was a big name during that time that was the true hero of WWE, the true face of the company, and that was Mr. Daniel Bryan.
I thought you were going to say CM Punk for a second.
Well, CM Punk was a really good asset, but then the whole lawsuit and then that interview with Colt Cabana happened, and then we've seen what that turned into. The CM Punk downfall goes a long way, but the thing Daniel Bryan got pushed, but they should have kept pushing him a little more before his injury. And there were more popular wrestlers at the time, more than Roman Reigns. There was Dean Ambrose, who was favored. There was
Seth Rollins. There was
Seth
Cesaro.
Cesaro, yep. It was.
I'm sure you can name more.
Well, see, the whole problem with Vince is that if you have one little screw up during a match or during a promo or backstage, he'll basically cast you aside, even if you're in the middle of a push.
Yeah.
Don't
Biggest
forget
example
what
of
he did
that
with Ric Flair and the Macho Man. He made him go wrestle on live TV a second right after they got done their match. He made him go back and do the whole match again.
Or look at what happened with Kofi Kingston. He was in a triple threat match with John Cena and Randy Orton, and Kofi Kingston accidentally botched a spot, and that pissed off Randy Orton, and Kofi Kingston never got another shot at a singles title until WrestleMania 35. What, 3 years ago now? Or 4 years ago, whichever?
I believe it's 4 years ago now.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy.
I think the tip of the iceberg when it came to the Roman Reigns hate came from the worst Royal Rumble that I know of, and that is 2015.
Yes.
Where where Vince was doing this tired old. I really liked the Authority. They were a good heel group, but they kept doing this thing where Roman Reigns saves the day from Kane and stuff, and everyone. Oh man, if I saw the eliminations, hold on.
Wasn't that the one where Roman Reigns won and it was being held in Philadelphia, and then The Rock came out to congratulate
Yes, it
him?
was. Yes, it was. And everyone booed him.
Well, yeah, that was the one where The Rock saved Roman Reigns and they saved the day, and it was so forced because The Rock was pushing Roman Reigns, and no one cared for Roman Reigns, and the whole stadium booed. It was horrible. It was a very dark, especially, and that was probably after the best year of PG WWE, which had to be 2014, WrestleMania 30, classic year of wrestling. Actually, I would say 2013 and 14. That was when Daniel Bryan was pushed. That's where I was resumed watching wrestling. I enjoyed that year. And that was also the year CM Punk left. And I really liked CM Punk's feud with Brock Lesnar before he... I still remember Paul Heyman, CM Punk. But then CM Punk disappeared. And I read the interview and stuff. And
my thing is WWE lost its way around 2009. Normally you have one heel, maybe two, that are able to push people over. But who are they going to push? You got Randy Orton, sure bet. What are they doing even today with Randy Orton? Not much.
Well, to be fair, Randy Orton's out with a pretty serious back injury
now. But I'm talking about from 2007 to, let's say, last year. He is not what you would call a total heel. He's not even what you would call a babyface. But either way, who's his main competition? Who in the last 5 years was he constantly fighting? When you go back to the golden days of wrestling, you had Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes. You had Ric Flair, Sting, and even though Ric Flair was holding the title, he was pushing the baby faces over.
Yeah.
You got to have someone to push over. When they lost the face of modern WWE with The Rock going to doing movies, which is nothing against them, do it. You had, even at the same time, you had Stone Cold. Let's be honest, Stone Cold could probably only do a couple matches if he wanted to, but he's not someone to do every day.
Yeah.
And they weren't. They had people there. You had Daniel Bryan. Let's be honest. They didn't want him to be the face. Even though you had people before Bob Backlund that no, they're not good looking or the physique, but he had the attitude, especially when he was with Team Hell No. Everybody loved him.
But see, that's also another Vince McMahon problem. Anybody like CM Punk or Daniel Bryan or any of the smaller guys doesn't really get their just due. Yes. Guys like Rey Mysterio eventually won both the World Heavyweight Championship and the WWE Championship. But it took so long for Vince to finally say, all right, I'll give him the brass ring if he can prove to me that he is main event material, the headliner for WWE. Because you have to remember, when you're holding the WWE title, more so than any other title, you are the face of the company. You are the representative of the company. And as far as Vince is concerned, it's the bigger guys. Lex Luger, Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Well, I already mentioned him, but The Rock, Triple H, just to name a few.
But they tried backing. He put like people to give him the chance. What was the guy from Mexico that ended up going to jail?
Alberto Del Rio.
Yeah. Look, he was willing to back him. You gave a chance to Sheamus. Then after that, nothing. What were they doing with The Miz? The Miz could be a good face of a person that is healed to push people over. He doesn't always have to have the WWE title. You can even have an Intercontinental title to push people over, or the United States title to push over. There's people there. What they're suffering from, everybody that's going through the WWE in the last 15 years, very few people, but the majority of them, looking for the Hollywood ticket. Okay.
And we say all of this just again to kind of rein in this conversation.
Mhm.
We say all of this to say that Vince McMahon has an ego and is very set in his ways,
Yes.
which lead and then you get into even more of the scummy stuff that he did, like we read in the article of him paying that hush money to keep quiet various sexual assault allegations, and that's what led to him resigning this
let's
past
also
July.
take a
Mm-hmm.
look at the fact that after Vince stepped down and retired, that morale in WWE was going up.
Yeah.
Well, I think I agree with Nova or whatever that I stopped watching wrestling too. I think one of my friends in college was like, "We got to watch wrestling," so we watched Raw, we watched The Rock, whoever else was around then. I just remember usually The Rock, but I stopped watching wrestling. But what I remember, of course, from the '80s, the games looks like the games are still pretty good. The 2K game that you guys had looks like it's pretty good when it works completely. It's supposed to be like anything entertaining, and they take out the trash talk, they take out this, they change this, they start pandering. Like I guess you guys were talking about the AEW.
Oh boy, don't
there's
get
like
us started on that.
there's like pandering there and stuff. But
Well, it's owned by the
wrestling-
same guy that owns what NFL team is it?
The Jaguars.
Yes.
Yeah, the same guy who owns the NFL
that's
team.
weird, huh? But
there
this
are
stuff is
more
supposed to be-
organizations now knowing. Let's say they're not in the '80s situation, but they are there. You have the new NWA. You have that one we're saying ACW, whatever that is called. There
Well,
are
look at-
other
yeah.
organizations out there, and my thing, I do not think, even regardless if the company WWE gets sold, I do not think Vince McMahon is done. If
But-
he's done,
yeah.
he's done with the WWE. I think to him, I don't think I think his daughter is willing to run it, but I don't think she wants to step in as
She's
owner.
she's not an employee of WWE anymore.
She used
No,
to wrestle.
I know
didn't
that,
she?
but I'm saying
Did,
you
yes.
got to
point,
ask yourself, who, if he's going to keep the company, who's he going to give it to? Shane don't have an interest really right now into it.
Mhm.
His
The
daughter,
Saudis.
all right, let's say he sold it to the Saudis. I don't think he's done. I wouldn't be surprised if this man does
I think
two things.
this
He
whole
buys
scheme.
another company, or
This
he
is a-
creates a new wrestling organization.
Well, Phil, I think this is a whole scheme so he can get back. He wants things to go how it was. He
That's
has
pretty
full
much it.
control, and he's in his office in the gorilla position. He wants to be there. He wants to control every aspect again.
I agree with that.
Well,
And WWE was just getting back to was actually being good. Wrestlers were actually being used, and now it's going to go back to the old tired '90s.
I wouldn't say
But
Usually-
is that going to be true with Triple H still being in creative, the head of creative?
For now.
for now.
It's noted that was said. Triple H is still in his creative position, quote, for the time being, in WWE's official.
If he sells
release
his
about
company
this.
to an organization or to an individual, that person's not going to keep Triple H. He's not going to keep any McMahon because then it'll cause too much trouble. When when you see like when the NWA got sold, both Crockett brothers gone. They offer services. No, thank you. It's time to move on. That's you don't when you buy a company, you do like Elon Musk. You say goodbye to the hierarchy and you bring in your own.
Mhm.
I personally don't think Triple H is doing anything right now but saying, let me see how everything settles out. If Vince McMahon turns around and buys another company or starts up a new company, I think he's going to follow his wife there. But if not, he can go on a not full active tour with wrestling. He can go to AEW. ACW. He doesn't have to be wrestling every day. You know?
Here's
And
another
even if
thing
he
too,
does
Phil.
announcing, he can go as an announcer.
Say he creates a new wrestling organization after selling WWE. What if he sells that wrestling organization just like he sold the XFL, the second iteration of the XFL? That could happen. Remember,
Mhm.
a lot of people were questioning why is Vince McMahon selling stock before
If
he
you guys,
announced that the XFL was coming back.
yeah, if you guys want to know, I mean, Vince McMahon though intimidated people. I mean, even the one of the announcers for the XFL, it's like it was dark and he wants him to come into his limo and stuff, and he doesn't know if he's going to get beat up or whatever. Like, this man intimidated people, and if you guys want to watch something very interesting, watch that 30 for 30 of the XFL. That's something. Really is.
Well, it's probably he intimidated the shareholders to put him back. It just reminds me of Palpatine. He's like
Mhm.
he manipulates all those senators to giving him emergency powers. Then
Right.
It's a power move. Vince
And then
McMahon
Yeah.
pulled
Mhm.
But when
Oh,
you
I-
have
ultimate power move.
81% of the voting stock,
no,
how are you going to fight against it?
I just think if the rumors are true that WWE gets sold to Saudi Arabia and it becomes a private company, that's the death of WWE.
Hold on a second, though, Crits. That's been debunked. Ariel Helwani confirmed that on Twitter.
Yes, there is no deal, but it's still one of the people that could buy WWE.
Yes.
They're still selling, and again, I want if it's sold to the Saudi Arabia, I could see most of the employees walking out. I could see it's the death of the company for sure. If it's sold to Comcast, I think that would be better. I don't, but you see, there could be another angle to this where Vince wants control and he wants whoever he sells it to give him back his full control.
I think, and I told you this already, Crits, and I certainly welcome your opinion, Pacific. I think what this is, Vince, we all agree he would not have made all of the changes that Triple H has. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is Vince McMahon saying, if I can't have WWE my way, no one can.
Well, he could always have closed shop and said, that's it, done.
But Vince isn't going to do that. He
No.
wants to continue making the money.
And I think, and I can understand from his point of view, if anybody's going to sell the WWE, it's going to be Vince McMahon.
Mhm.
It isn't going to be someone else that's a CEO, not counting his daughter, because again, family is working behind the scenes. I don't see him doing any move without notifying family. So she knew what was going on and does know what's going on. But as far as the rest of them people on there, let's just put it to you this way. When you're buying into stock of a company, you already know pretty much upfront how much the controlling shareholders got. Ain't a secret that he had 81%. It's not a secret. Anybody says that, oh, this is illegal, he can't. If you own a majority stock, and the way the company is set up where you have a board, CEOs, and all their offices, there's nothing telling that person at 81%, I'm going to, here's how it normally works. They'll hold a meeting, have a vote for who's going to be the CEO, for example. No matter how they vote, Vince McMahon's vote is 81%. He wins no matter if the other ones say no.
Right.
There's nothing you can do unless when you buy out the company or you make a deal to try to buy. See, I don't think that WWE puts enough free stock out there so that somebody else can come along and buy that stock to use it as, oh, we need 10,000 shares to overtake Vince McMahon. I don't think he puts out 10,000 shares. I think he might put out there for sale maybe 200 shares, for example.
But here's another thing too to consider. Whether it actually happens, I don't know. because I'm not an insider. I'm not, they're in the depths of WWE. But what if more stockholders come forward and start filing lawsuits against Vince McMahon and WWE? That's going to hold up the sale too.
It's
Not
going
to
to hold up the
mention-
sale, but in the grand scheme of things, if it's 19%, it's still 19%. They might not like it, but they're, again, let's just say this stockholder, Mike, been a WWE stockholder since 2000, and he owns 7%. Paul owns 10%, and I own the rest. You already know up front how it's all divvied up. You already know I have majority stock. So even if you and Paul were to say, "Hey, we don't like this," you do get your vote. But in the grand scheme of things, he's got the majority vote. There's no. That's how some of these corporations look. I say this again. He should have never have made the WWE public with the stock. The only reason he did that was a chance to get more money, but he was never going to put where he was not going to be the majority shareholder. That never was going to happen.
So
and here's another thing, just real quick, Paul, and
Go ahead.
then I'll be quiet. Does Vince really want to put himself through more legal action? He's already on the hook for that money that he had to pay back to WWE that he paid off those women. And going into a legal battle, that's going to cost him money. I don't care how much money you have. It's still going to cost him some money.
not to mention all the legal battles that he faced in '95 with the steroid scandal.
Mm-hmm.
One thing on that, Mike, depending on how he did, quote unquote, a settlement and payments out to these people, if it turns out they revealed they were getting the payments, then they can be liable. Because when you do a non-conclusive agreement, whatever you do, and you accept a payment for your pain, suffering, and damages, you then broke the contract that you signed to get that. He can actually sue them. That's how that works. So it's not like a one-way street. It's a two-way street.
I know it's not a one-way street, but what I'm saying is, does Vince want to put himself through any more legal litigation because he's already had to put money out for the allegations, and he's going to have to put money out to defend his hostile takeover of WWE?
If its sale is done within 4 to 6 months, I don't think he'll have a problem. But if he tries to extend that sale, quote unquote, let's say 8 to 12, I will lean your way. But if he's doing this to get a good deal and sale to benefit him, and it's done quickly, again, we may not even be privy to the information. There might already have been a seller and the product has been sold. We don't know.
We do know that JP Morgan is the middleman handling the
Mhm.
sale.
So, and let's just say this, and I'll say again, my belief, if Vince McMahon isn't done, let's say he wanted control. Maybe he tried to step away. He didn't. He wasn't going to, more than likely, these shareholders, he wasn't going to be able to buy out. And if they really don't want a McMahon there, that would definitely exclude his daughter. If I was in his shoes, and I guess this is just guessing, I would try to get the deal done, sell my company, and nothing stopping him to doing a smaller wrestling. Hey,
I am real quick. I'm going to cut you off here, Phil, because Nova.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Nova just sent me on Discord another article from stillrealtous.com, kind of confirming something what we already said, but I want to bring it up anyways because at least we're not the only ones talking about it. Actual publications are. So backstage news on Vince McMahon possibly taking over creative if WWE is sold. On Tuesday night, it was reported that Vince McMahon had sold WWE to the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund, but multiple outlets have since reported that the deal is not done, and that's important. Fightful Select reports that WWE sources are adamant that no sale to Saudi Arabia has taken place as of yet. It's been reported that Vince McMahon himself has had conversations along the way, but that doesn't necessarily mean a sale is happening. Numerous talent shot down several rumors, but also reportedly had questions of their own. There is said to be a prevailing fear that Vince McMahon will try to use a sale to work his way back into creative with the belief that the Saudis would let that happen. Numerous wrestlers who have returned and several top stars in WWE have said they would walk out of the company if the company is sold to Saudi Arabia. Other people in the company believe there would be a negative reaction to Vince taking over creative. WWE have sources have dismissed the idea that a deal is done when it comes to a potential sale of WWE. Stay tuned for more updates as they become available. So all of that being said, I have two questions. Number one, these lawsuits that are currently going on against Vince McMahon, both the money that he owes back to WWE for paying out that hush money, and the lawsuit that just got filed on him for allegedly illegally bringing himself back into power as head of the chairman of the board. What if that lawsuit is successful? What's the fallout from that?
That's hard to say.
Does that mean that Vince
not knowing
McMahon is
the
completely
entire
blocked?
details.
Does that mean that Vince McMahon is completely blocked from becoming chairman, or what?
I really don't know. I can't really speak to an area that's not an area of expertise.
It will all depend on how everything is worded in the Chancery Court of Delaware of WWE and what they have written down, how they run their company. If they say majority vote, then Vince McMahon can put himself in there just by saying, let's hold a vote. If they say, well, you might have majority vote, but in the stipulations, if 3 out of the 4 say you can't, then you can't. We're never going to be privy to that information.
Mm-mm.
Also, the Saudi corporation, whatever it is, they never have to announce that they bought the WWE in the Chancery Court. Well, let's just say, Paul, we want to buy your channel. So Mike, me, and Crit get together and we call ourselves the PCI company. And the PCI company buys you out. You'll never know who owns what and who is the owners of PCI.
Okay.
So the Saudi government can say, okay, we're going to buy the WWE. We're not going to list ourselves as the owner. So we're going to set up a dumping corporation that's going to be listed as the owner. And that's protected under Delaware law. There's many companies that join together. You'd be surprised. Coca-Cola, maybe with Disney, might own half of Best Buy. You'll never know it. They're not allowed to even tell you. All you know is they select somebody to represent them on the board on their behalf, and that's it.
And then my other question is, on the flip side of this, suppose WWE does indeed go and get sold to the Saudi Arabian, whatever that name was. What in detail is the fallout? Yes, we agree it would be a bad thing, but what specifically would happen?
I think you would see not just wrestlers leave, but you would see longtime members of WWE who worked in the offices in Connecticut leave.
Mm-hmm. They either leave
you would
voluntarily
see,
or get asked to leave by the Saudis.
Depending on the individual fan, you might see fans boycott WWE.
Mm-hmm. Crit, I believe you mentioned in passing that if Saudi indeed bought WWE, you'd stop watching, right?
Mm-hmm. It's dead. You know.
Yeah.
There's a truth to everything. There's companies. A company is born, but there is always a company never lives on forever.
No.
There's always an end. 20th Century Fox went on for many decades since the 1940s. And what happened to that?
They got absorbed by Disney.
Exactly.
Yes. Yep.
Could let me
It's not
just ask
good.
this question: could we be seeing the end of WWE, not just as we know it, but as a whole?
I think it's very possible. I've always said that companies like the WWE are too big to truly fail, but I could be proven wrong, and I frankly don't want to be proven wrong because in spite of WWE's flaws, in spite of Vince McMahon's planet-sized ego, I still like WWE. I may be out of touch with it because I haven't watched in a while, but WWE is still my number one pick if I want to turn on some wrestling matches. I have no interest in watching AEW. I have no interest. No offense to anyone. I have no interest in watching Impact, MLW, New Japan. I have no interest in watching anyone else because, frankly, no one else is WWE, even though they try to be.
Yeah, a lot of companies have tried to be WWE and have failed. I mean, I myself have a lot of fond memories watching WWF back in the 80s, going into the 90s, and especially the late 90s, watching the Attitude Era, and then actually going to WWE events. Think about it. The event experience for WWE, if and when they are sold to another company, another entity, it's probably going to look drastically different a few months after the sale, maybe a year after the sale, maybe a couple years after the sale. Because you know yourself, Paul, you've been to house shows. You know what it's like to be at a WWE event.
I do.
It's
and
different.
Well, I see it like this. We have wrestlers that were complaining about any of the Saudi shows. But when the money was good, they went to the Saudi shows.
But at the
So
same time,
even if it becomes a Saudi and they do announce it that it's a Saudi company, yes, there are going to be people leaving.
Well, it's
but
not just that.
Not all of them are going to leave, but if the money's good, they're going to stay.
It's not just that, Phil. If the Saudis get WWE, a lot of the television shows are going to probably stop. And the television deals are going to end. And the most, and again, they're going to lock all that juicy classic WWE content.
I don't know about that, Crit. The Saudis are pretty good business people. I mean, technically, they're running most of our ports in this country, so it isn't like they're bad business people.
One thing I do want to respond to, Phil, that you mentioned, yes, for certain wrestlers, yes, the money will be good enough to convince them, but some won't even get the opportunity to be convinced by the money because
the women.
Yeah, if WWE gets bought by the Saudis, say goodbye to the women's division. Say goodbye to any wrestler that in real life is a member of the LGBT community. Say goodbye to Sami Zayn because he has Palestinian roots. Or
say goodbye to female wrestlers.
I already said that. Say goodbye. Say goodbye. I think to Mustafa Ali. Say goodbye to people like John Cena and Kevin Owens because they want nothing to do with Saudi Arabia because of,
say
real
goodbye
life
to Triple
stuff
H.
that we
well, like I said, there will be changes regardless of who it is. But if I'm the Saudi corporation or whatever, the Prince of Saudi Arabia or whoever's buying it, the last thing I want to do is do major changes. Yes, I might want to change who's running the show, which means probably no McMahon, and that probably includes no Triple H running the show. You're not going to buy. Look, if it was Ted Turner, do you think Ted Turner is going to keep anybody of them on there? No. And do I see the Saudi Arabians buying it so they can put Vince McMahon in charge? No. If they're buying it, they're wanting to make a profit. And
And they
whatever
would
it would take
likely
to
want
make the
to
profit.
work it themselves.
Yeah. Or, like I said, I mean, we don't know who else could step in. Ted Turner can come out of nowhere and buy it. And I told Paul this before. Guess what? I am the real winner of the Monday Night Wars.
I do not think that's
I don't
gonna
see that
happen.
happening.
I'm
Phil.
just saying, you do not know who can turn out to buy it. But then again, here's the thing. Vince McMahon doesn't like you. He doesn't have to sell the company to you. Now, that's when the board can say, well, if, let's say, Ted Turner's offering the most money, he says no. The board then has a legitimate gripe because they want the best money that they can get, and he's denying a sale.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, whoever buys the company, just like what happened when I told everybody that was going to happen with Mr. Musk, immediately the books are open. The books are automatically open. So they have to verify that the price of the stock that the person's buying at the price is at that price. That means there's no hidden fees, no hidden hush money. So if Vince McMahon has something hidden and he paid, let's say, $30 million to hush some people up, that will come out.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets deducted. We all know that what the asking price for Twitter was not what he paid. And right now, you will not know what he paid. You'll notice there's no price out there. They're going to sit on that for years before they were actually released. I think he got up to 5 years. In 5 years' time, you will know what Elon paid when he bought that and at what price. Same thing will go here. Same thing, the exact same thing will go here.
Right. And real quick, Nova saying Elon Musk can buy it. Yeah, but I think right now he's got his hands full with Twitter. And I have one more question that I want to ask everyone before I think we reach a good place to wrap it up. And this is something that I'm sure each of you will have a different answer. But if each of you had the ability to somehow influence the direction of WWE going forward as far as Vince McMahon and the power struggle, what would each of you do? Because I can say I would find a way to pretty much say to Vince, stop this, go home, enjoy your retirement, keep your majority share stock if you want, but just take your retirement, let Stephanie and Triple H run it from here on out. You've done enough. What about you, Mike?
That's exactly what Vince needs to do. He needs to step away. He needs to hang up the boots, hang up the jacket, and let somebody else run WWE. He'll always be a part of the company.
Mm-hmm.
No matter if it stays within the family, no matter if it's sold to Comcast, Disney, the Saudis, whoever, he will always have a huge footprint in that company. But he has needed to step away for quite some time. And reading fans' reactions to this news, fans aren't happy that he's back. If you think the board's not happy, well, neither are the fans.
Yeah. What about you, Crit?
I think I personally just want Vince McMahon to go away. Let WWE go and give it back. I think it was in the best. I think it was in the bet. It was healing with Triple H, and I was in. But if things go back how they were last year, and then on top of that, if it's sold to Saudi Arabia, I don't know. If it's sold to Saudis, I probably will quit WWE. But if it's sold to Comcast or something, I think that's beneficial for WWE because that's a company at least I could see using it to good use, and you know it would remain on USA. But if I saw, say, WWE, I don't know how it would work if it was owned by the Saudis. But again, there's like litigation issues and stuff from WWE being acquired by a foreign entity such as Saudi Arabia.
So
That's another thing too to consider. The WWE is an American family-owned business.
mhm.
How many of those of a corporation the size of WWE are left?
Not many. And Cash, what about you for my question? If you somehow could influence the direction of WWE going forward as far as Vince McMahon and his power struggle, what would you do?
I mean, like I said, I haven't really paid attention to wrestling in years, but things that I know about Vince McMahon, he steps down. I agree with Crit. The Saudis shouldn't own it. Somebody should own it to bring that greatness back to a lot of the fans that want it. That trash talking, the fun moments, the just the entertainment value. So if like Disney for some reason bought it, heaven forbid, that would be bad. You need somebody in there who's going to buy it and bring back that greatness. Because I'm guessing to you guys, I don't know, the WWE is still good or whatever, but if it still feels like Raw, or if Raw is still around, then you guys want somebody to buy it who's probably not an egomaniac like Vince, and who's going to bring it back to the greatness that it should be, right?
Yeah.
I'm just guessing. So.
I want someone who's going to come in and respect what came before and add to it.
Yep.
And on
Not water it down, not trash it
Right.
for
Right.
what it did in the past, but look at that legacy and say, how can we honor this legacy that was created? Not just by Vincent K. McMahon, but Vincent J. McMahon.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
And
well,
Ro-
unfortunately, he's in trouble now because a video got released and he apologized for. I don't know how deep we want to go into any politics here, but
yeah, Dana White's got enough on his plate already.
yeah, he's got a lot, and then he unfortunately there's a video, and I wish his wife just hit him back. I don't know, but I don't know the whole story, but I know the media will spin it the way that they want to spin it, because they already have issues with Dana White, especially a lot of the mainstream media. But anyways, I don't want to get too far off topic, but
Right.
I don't think the Saudis should own Saudis. There's going to be politics, especially stuff to do with 9/11, just like what happened with golf, where people would break away, and then the ESPN and other news organizations and sports organizations or news outlets will take the side of the people who are not for that. I'm sure you guys know how golf has split off with the tournaments in Saudi Arabia, excuse me, and then the other tournaments, and how golfers feel. That's the kind of issue that will probably happen with wrestling if the Saudis ended up buying it.
Yes. And real quick, Phil, before I ask you the question, one thing I do want to say about Disney buying WWE, while I think we can all agree Disney buying WWE would not be as catastrophic as as Saudi Arabia buying WWE, Disney's biggest downfall for buying WWE would be that they simply wouldn't understand WWE.
Nope.
And it would be WWE would be in grave danger of being fundamentally changed in the same way that Marvel and Star Wars and everything else Disney has acquired has, at least in modern day Disney.
I don't think Disney could have absorbed WWE even they want to. It's borderline pushed over the edge, definitely going into it's a monopoly.
Yes.
I don't think they can buy anything for the next 20 years, my opinion on that. So I would definitely say Disney is out of the question. Now,
But that-
other organizations are out there. As I tell everybody, looks like we don't like Saudi Arabia. I'm not a fan of them, but they already own a lot of things here in the United States.
True.
You know?
So
Nothing comes in our ports. All the ports are pretty much owned right now by Saudi companies. So some of the things that we are thinking that we're not going to get, I can't say. How they would run it, I can't say. Look, I went through the same feelings when I was a fan of NWA. I was not a great fan of the Crockett's. I frowned upon Ted Turner, who was throwing money like it was candy. And then, voila, Vince McMahon bought it, and it is what it is. I survived. Still like wrestling. I know you guys are really big on Triple H. Let's be honest. Since 2007, you can even go, okay, push it to 2009. There's never been that superstar. And I'm not talking about The Undertaker. Not talking about The Rock. I'm not talking about Stone Cold. Who is the next superstar? We don't have it. You don't have it. And he was there as creative consultant as much. The one person that did their job was Stephanie McMahon. She made the women's organization what it is. And I would say it is the best shining part of the WWE. You have somebody that can play the heel to push people over with Charlotte Flair. And you can have somebody else that is the baby face. They have it. The men's don't have it. I'm sorry, they don't.
So, again, though, Phil, getting back to the question that I'm asking, if you, Phil McCracken, had the ability to influence the direction of WWE as far as Vince and what's going on right now, what would you do?
If I could buy it and have somebody take charge of it, I'll be honest, and this might be really crazy for some people.
Mm-hmm.
I threw out Ted Turner. I will not be surprised to throw out an Eric Bischoff who has good ties with the Discovery Channel, and maybe even him making the push to buy it. Again,
no Zaslav. No.
Well, again,
No.
I will tell you this: regardless of who buys it, Paul, there is going to be major changes. Again, I don't see Triple H staying there. I don't see his wife staying there.
His wife's already gone.
Yeah. So he's if he's not retired or he goes to be an announcer somewhere, he's gone. So you already got changed there. There is no McMahon there. That's change. Think about it. When you look at it, any sports organization, the wrestling, WWF, WWE, McMahon. That's the equivalent of stock car racing with Petty. You don't see a Petty. You don't see an Earnhardt. They're gone. The families are gone. So this is going to be a turning point for the WWE. It ain't going to be the same, but it does not mean it's going to be a bad thing. If you get the right people, even if it's the Saudis, if they put somebody that knows wrestling, knows the business, puts them in charge, hey, they don't even have to go with the Eric Bischoff. They can go with the Kevin Sullivan.
Is Kevin Sullivan still alive?
Yes, he is. He's still alive. He's not dead. But he knows how to be a booker. You need a booker. That's a definite. They need a legit, real booker that can actually book matches. They haven't had that in a long time. And I know the perfect one is the one from the New Age Outlaws, not the one with the blonde hair, but the other one that used to do the announcing. He's a good booker, and the WWE should never have let him go. If I was an owner,
unfortunately, he had a heart attack not too long ago. I don't know if he's.
That's a sad thing, but if there's a good booker, him. If they want somebody to run a wrestling organization, Kevin Sullivan will be perfect. You might not want to Eric Bischoff because he's, how can I put it, Finkel. He's good for maybe a year, maybe two, but you're not looking like 10 years. No. Kevin Sullivan can do it, but Kevin Sullivan can never do it by himself. You need to set up a group of people. That's why I say the guy from Billy Gunn. and the other guy from New Edge household. They're perfect for
Road Dogg,
the match.
Jesse James.
Jesse, yep, they'd be perfect. Another person that would be perfect if he comes out after he's done his mayor, the guy who played Kane.
Glenn Jacobs.
I can see him being on the booking committee. They need.
I don't. I think he's going to continue his political career.
You never know.
I think Glenn Jacobs is done with wrestling in general. He's going to focus, like Paul said, on that political career because that's what he's wanted to do. Even
Yes.
as a wrestler, he wanted to go into politics, and he's done that. And he will probably continue.
And here, Phil, unfortunately, I do have to cut you off because I think it's time to go ahead and wrap this up, okay?
But I don't want to say goodnight to Cash Money.
It's Cash. There he
I'm
is.
here. What's up? What do you want, Phil? You want some pennies? I guess I might have some in my pocket. Let
I
me
want
check.
shiny new pennies.
All right, I'll give you some shiny pennies.
Mhm.
But you'll have to pick them up from the ground. So.
All right. So, Phil, any closing words?
No, I think we said it all. We'll see what happens in the future. And Scott and I are suckers.
All right. See you guys later.
Okay, see